Well, in this episode, I want to talk about preparing and not taking things for granted. More about that in a moment. Let's bring on our shining co host.
It's pretty tough to fly an airplane with one leg because you've got rudders, right, that are really important.
Welcome back to our channel. We're all about picking ourselves back up from a bad fall, and this time, making the success that we want to make. Thanks for joining in with us. And we have another good story for you today to help you bounce back to success. Now, in the last episode, we talked about how you can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. And sometimes we can train so hard that what comes next is no match, but also sometimes we can neglect to focus on our training and have a big fail. Well, in this episode, I want to talk about preparing and not taking things for granted. More about that in a moment. Let's bring on our shining co host. Hi, Max. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Tony. You doing all right?
I'm doing good. So good to see you. Thanks for hopping on.
You
And
bet.
this is an interesting twist, if you want to say, in your chapter 8, which is titled Start Her Up. You talk about breaking your ankle from playing basketball and how you should have been more focused on learning to fly. And I really love your story because it really truly is a story of perseverance. You push through to get your fixed wing license. Max, can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, sure, Tony. I was a second lieutenant. I graduated from the academy, and my first assignment was pilot training. And I had all great ideas about what I wanted to do as a pilot in the Air Force. And so I'm in training, and there are probably 8 of us, I guess, in the class, maybe 10. I can't remember for sure. And we were all focused. Pilot training is not an easy thing to go through. First of all, there are a lot of conditions that you will have thrown at you. Aerial combat, what's that going to be like? You need to train for it. That means you're going to have flights where you're going to have aero flights, we call them, and you're upside down, you're spinning, you're turning in a flat spin headed for the ground. How do you get out of this? All those kinds of things that you need to know. So you practice those with an instructor pilot. And then you're tested at the end of each segment of pilot training. The ground study is pretty rough too. You have to learn all about aerodynamics, but they're called rotor dynamics if you happen to be in pilot training in helicopters, which I went through later. So it's tough. It's tough on the families. There's a lot of focus. Focus being the magic word here, Tony, that we're going to talk about a little bit. So one of the things, activities on the base that I was at for pilot training was intercollegiate, if you will, inter-squadron, inter-wing basketball. Well, I'd played basketball in high school. I'd done okay. I'd lettered and so forth. So I'm going to go out and try out for the base basketball team. And I made it. Okay. So being a bit aggressive and thinking about all this pilot training thing that was going on, there was a time when I got the ball. I stole it from the opposition. I take off toward the other end of the court. And there's one guy down there between me and being able to get this ball in the basket. So I just charge at him. I'm left, right. I just go right at him. I went over the top of him and landed poorly on an ankle. Broke the doggone thing. Now, it's pretty tough to fly an airplane with one leg because you've got rudders, right, that are really important. And so suddenly I show up at pilot training class on the airfield, and I've got my leg in a cast from the ankle up to the knee. So obviously my instructor pilot was really angry. What the heck are you doing? Taking a chance. You're in the middle of something important. Everything is scheduled. We need just try. And neither the squadron commander was even more angry. So I sat, talked after I wasn't flying, and they all came back, and I said, we got to figure out something. I got to graduate with my class. And so we did. When I was able to get the cast down below the knee, and then I was able to get a partial cast with a little flexibility, and thanks to a very kind flight surgeon who said, "I get it. I'll get you through this." And then toward the end, we took extra flights, extra flights, extra flights, extra flights, so that I could end up graduating with my class. And let me show you something, Tony. I don't think I've ever shown you this. This is the first set of wings that I was awarded on time. And I graduated because what? We found a way. We punched through the pain. Number one, it wasn't always that pleasant. Punch through the, which is what my dad used to tell me. Punch through the pain, you wimp, which I laughed at, and so did he. But it was his way of saying, "You can do this. Okay, you don't have to be a wimp. You got it. Punch through the pain." So I got my wings through perseverance and finding. When you come to a path, when you come to a crook in the road, Yogi Berra said, "Take it." When you come to a fork in the road, well, in my case, there was a fork in the road, and I chose to take the one less traveled, which was find another way to get through pilot training and get this beautiful set of wings.
That's very cool. It's very easy to just quit, say, "Oh, my leg's broken." Do something else, find another activity. But it's a matter of focus. And I want to hear the story of you getting your fixed wing license, because I love the story and there's some lessons there. So once you graduated, you then took a vacation.
Yeah, I had my wings, my Air Force wings, my military wings, and suddenly you knew a lot about flying and how much fun it was and what a great thing to be able to do. And so I was going home on leave. I had 30 days leave after pilot training. And I thought, what'd be great? I'll get my commercial license so I can fly civilian airplanes while I'm home on leave. And I'll take my family up, and we'll fly around Humboldt, Tennessee, and the farm where I grew up, and maybe some of my old buddies. Okay, so number one, you have to take ground school. And that's a lot different from the military's ground school. There's just things that you didn't do that civilians have to do, and vice versa. So I called up, and there was a school in Memphis, land school. And so I went down and walked in, and I said, "Hey, I just got my Air Force wings. I'm fully pilot. I'd like to get my commercial wings." And the guy said, "Fine." I said, "So what do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, first of all, you have to pass ground school." And I said, "Oh, well, mine doesn't. No, you've got to pass through our ground school. And then you can go and you need X number of hours practicing with a civilian instructor pilot." I said, "Okay, great. I got it. So can I take the test?" He said, "Actually, you can. You have to have X amount of time." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I took the test. Didn't seem like it was really hard, but some things I weren't used to. So I turned in the test, and he said, "I'm sorry, Mr. James, but you didn't pass." "What? What?" "No, you missed too many questions out of the 100 or whatever it was." And I said, "Oh my goodness. Okay." And I'm thinking, if I could take the test again, now that I know the answer to those two questions that I didn't know the answer, if I could take it again, we'd be all. So I said, "Okay, I'd like to take it again. What do I have to do?" He said, "Well, you have to take the course." And I said, "How long is that?" And he said, "It's about 4 weeks." And I said, "Oh, I have to go back. There's got to be some other way." And he said, "Well, you can take the course singularly by filling out this whole book and watching a slideshow that has the training." I said, "Okay, when's that available?" And he said, "Well, you can take that now." I said, looking at my watch, I said, "How long does it take to take it?" And he said, "It'll take you probably 3 hours, maybe four." Now I'm starting to get a headache. But I said, "Fine, give me the materials." And I go into a room by myself, and I'm thinking, I don't need to know all of this stuff. Just what I turns out that the test was a brand new test. It
Oh,
wasn't taking the old test. So suddenly it didn't matter whether I knew the answer to those two questions or not. But somehow or another, by the end of the day, with a horrible migraine headache and sweating, I passed. Okay, so now I head home from Memphis, and tomorrow morning I am getting up. I'm going to go get an IP. So there's a little airport in Humboldt, Tennessee, and it has some planes out there, a few Piper Cubs and those kind back in the day. So I go out there, get out of my car, and went into one of the Quonset hut type buildings. And there's a fella working on an airplane dressed in khakis. And I walk up to him and I said, "Excuse me." And he turns around and I go, "He doesn't have an eye." And I don't mean it's closed or patched. There's a socket there where an eye could be. And so I was like this, but I tried my best not to be so obvious. And I said, "Excuse me, but I passed my commercial ground school for pilot training, and I'd like to get an instructor pilot to take me up and check me out in one of your airplanes." He said, "Fine." Now he's dressed in khaki. He's got grease on his hands and grease on his khakis and this one eye. And he said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I said, "So will you introduce me to an IP, an instructor pilot?" And he said, "I'm an IP. I'm an instructor pilot." Yeah. And so he is. We go out to a plane, and he said, "I'm going to do the quick checklist thing." Well, I'm used to 3 or 4 8 pages checklist on a jet or Air Force plane, and he just walks around and he said, "Get in." I said, "Okay." He said, "Here's what we have to do. I have to go up and make sure that you can recover from a stall where the airplane falls because it doesn't have enough lift on the wings. And he says you have to satisfy me that you can land this thing 5 times." Okay. So we get in, and after the walk around, and he said, "Okay, start her up." I don't know how to start up this plane. Do you have the checklist? Where you go through all the things to check. And he said, he reaches over and he says, "See this key? Turn it." And so it's like a car, not like that military thing you've been checking. So I turn it, and sure enough, the blade starts spinning, and he said, "Okay, let's go." How do I go? There's no accelerator. There's no, and so he shows me how to get the engine running a little faster. And I taxi it pretty well, Tony, not great, but I get it out. And he said, "Okay, before you take the runway," and I said, "Don't we need to call the tower?" He said, "We don't have a tower. It's just you and me, fella." So he says, "Check the mags." Magnometer. I know how to do that. We had one of those. And so check the mags, and he said, "Let's go." So I taxi out onto the end of the runway, and he said, "Let's go." And I'm thinking, nobody has. I don't have to get permission from air controller anywhere. No, let's go, let's go, let's go. So off we go. Now I don't know what holding the yoke down. We get faster and faster and faster. And he said, "Are you going to fly or just taxi?" And I said, "I don't know what the takeoff speed is." He said, "It was about 20 knots ago." Let go. So suddenly here we go up into the air. All right, so I'm figured out I don't really know how to fly. So we go up and I do the stall thing. Fine, I understand that. And we come down, and he said, "All right, I'm going to land the first one, then we'll go around. And you land the second." So we land. He shows me kind of speeds. Come back around, and I make a nice landing. He said, "Come, let's do that again. Make another nice landing." He said, "You got 3 more to go. Go up, make another nice landing. Only this time, when we land, boom." I go, "God, what?" And suddenly the airplane swerves off, and he said, "Just pull it on off of the runway. Pull it off in the grass." And I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Oh, that damn tire blew. I knew that was going to happen." "You knew the tire was bad and you're going to send me up solo?" Anyway, he said, "Well, here's the deal. Can you come back later today? I'll call Sears and Roebuck in Memphis, Tennessee. They'll put a tire on the bus, a Greyhound bus. They'll send it up to Humboldt. I'll change the tires, and we'll go finish your 2 landings." We did. He got out and he said, "It's probably enough gas in there for a couple hours." Probably. So he said, "Have a good time." That was my total test of getting my commercial pilot's license. The point being, I guess, you just punch through. You just do what you're told. You follow the rules, you get it done. Well, I flew my grandfather to his farms. He'd never been in the air before. I flew my little brother and sister. I flew my dad. Anybody that would give me $5 for gas, I'd take them up. I had the best time in the world that summer, Tony.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I really like that, just punch through. If you're really serious about it, you're going to
Yep.
punch through. And that's how it is the life of an entrepreneur on any endeavor, anything you're doing at any level. If it's serious enough, you'll just push through regardless of what it takes. It just doesn't matter if you're serious about it. And I really think that's the big takeaway. And it's like I see so many times people don't seem to make what they want or accomplish what they want. And I think it's just a matter of pushing through. And there's probably a million different ways to do it. But the key is really being serious enough that you're not going to take no for an answer. You're not going to stop no matter what.
Yeah, and even if you get knocked down, Tony, remember the old saying, knocked down 5 times, get up six? You're not always going to succeed on the first try. You also need to manage your expectations. You can't start flying and believe that you're going to, the next step is astronaut. Okay, it doesn't work that way. And a lot of the steps that you have to take are tiny steps. You can't always leap to your goal. Sometimes you have to work your way step at a time. And sometimes to climb up that mountain to your goal, as we've said, it's a tough climb. It's a hard climb. And sometimes when you fail, going down that failure slide on the mountain is tough. So what do? You get up and you go again until you beat a path. And oftentimes you can take pride in you've beat a path that others now can walk without as much difficulty as you. You beat a path for other people. I like that.
I like that a lot. That's the story of Mount Everest. I mean,
Sure.
back in the day, I forget the two names of the two gentlemen that went up there. Sir, I,
Right.
I'll butcher their names if I try to remember it now, but they went up with some Sherpas. They did it. They showed it can be done. Others
Yeah.
went up, and now it's
Yeah.
standing room only. There's a big line trying to get to the top,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think that's the big thing is, as you said, you call it manage expectations.
Yeah. Set your goals, but don't set them so that you've set something that's probably going to fail. Okay, figure out how you're going to get up there. You know, they sometimes say that uh, beginning at the end. One of the great authors said, "Begin at the end," meaning know what your goal is. That's the beginning, and then work your way back to the actual start of attaining your goals. And beginning is winning. I like that one too.
I like that a lot. Great. Max, I just want to thank you so much for sharing some of your stories about how it was back in the heyday. And we all have our own hurdles,
Sure.
even though it's different. It can even be easier than it was back then. But the whole key thing is as you said, being focused and knowing where you're going and taking those little steps. I really, really love that. So I want to thank you for sharing all that with us.
Oh, you bet. It's always fun to talk to you, Tony.
Thank you. And to our audience, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with us and listening to these stories. And we're taking stories from here, the book, The Harder I Fall, The Higher I Bounce. If you go down in the link below, you'll see a description. Please check it out. Great stories. I absolutely love the book. And
Tony,
if you
you've
have
been a
stories,
great host. You've been a great host for 12 videos. Thank you very much for your time. And it's my fondest hope that people benefit from some of these experiences that I've had.
thank you. Yes, we've had a couple of good, we have some good comments here and there, and it's been inspirational to people. So that's the
Thank you.
whole thing, is the legacy, leaving that information so that others can then follow, and it'll be easier for them, no matter what the world is like tomorrow, because you're on the backs of others and you see how it is.
Yep.
They've taken you through. It actually can become easier for you, no matter what happens.
Standing on the shoulders of others.
I love it. And again, to our audience, if you like this podcast, please let us know with a big thumbs up and subscribe. And We'll see what we do next if we have another episode or what. We definitely more in the book to talk about. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. And Max, I just want to thank you for hopping on with us.
Thank you, Tony. See you soon.